everybody. This is another one of our 25 videos that we are working on this year in honor of 25 years of ministry for Lift Disability Network. This has been such a fun project for us. We've been talking about different programs that have kind of shaped the direction of the ministry for Lift, but mostly it's been about people over the last 25 years that have just become family to us. And so when we were deciding on how in the world to whittle down 25 years of ministry and people, like how in the world do you choose 25 stories? But the Ferans were on the top of that list. So we have Crystal and Tim joining us today. And so thank you guys so much for making the trip over to our office to be a part of this project. And I think that's where I want to start is off, though, with how you guys even connected with Lift, why you got connected, kind of the makeup of your family, and why Lift Disability Network is part of y'all's life as well.
Okay. So I had already known Jim for a very, very long time, since my high school age, his college age.
We won't say how long ago
right,
that was.
We won't say how long ago that was. Just, high school, college, And I had not seen him, or, I was in Florida. He was, living his life, doing all kinds of things. And ran into him at a family cafe conference in Orlando.
Yeah.
And we were able to kind of meet and have lunch with Jim and Renette. And that was actually the first time I was able to meet Renette. We had, I had known Jim for many years before that. So that was kind of when I first was able to connect with them and learn about, that they learn about what Lift was and what they were doing with Lift. And we sort of fall into that category because we adopted our daughter from Guatemala, and she was born with Down syndrome. So that kind of just put us right in the right category to be able to be a part of what Lift was doing. So
awesome. And we were talking earlier, that was like 2011.
It was before 11 because we attended the first breakaway.
The breakaway was in 2011.
Right.
So the family cafe was
before that, probably 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
Something
so
like
we're going to jump forward a couple years to breakaway.
Right.
Which was the very first. And we were just talking about the beginning years of breakaway. And I think we had 56 people total in that breakaway. Crew, volunteers, everybody combined. And you guys were a part of that very first breakaway that Lift did. Same place, Lake Yale.
Yeah.
So tell us about, you haven't been at every breakaway as a family, at least.
No.
But breakaways had a pretty big impact on you guys. And can you talk about some of the memories and different years and themes and all of that stuff with breakaway? Because you guys have attended as a family. You have another son, and so I think it's been fun for the entire family.
It has.
I hope
yes.
it has.
Do you have memories you want to share?
It's been fun, no doubt. There's a lot of people to meet and a lot of families to enjoy and get to know and share and learn. Yeah, there's many of that, and there's always fun at the last night.
The talent show. That's still going on, I'm sure, from last year.
Yes.
Goes on and on and on, right?
Yes.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You guys were sharing earlier, so your son Andrew,
Yes.
He's been a part of a lot of breakaways as well.
Yes.
And so this was way before I was around at Breakaway, but there was a character that was stealing. It was
Snively.
And he was stealing stuff around camp.
Mm-hmm.
But your son Andrew took it upon himself to figure out what was like.
And he was 6. So he was just this fun, energetic little guy, and Snively kept taking things, and he took that seriously, and he was determined that he was going to find out who Snively was. He was going to catch Snively, and he was quite a persistent little thing. I think it had Snively really on the ball to stay past that.
So much so that we've had to retire that character, isn't it? He's never been back. He put our campers on edge, apparently.
Yeah, so that was fun. But...
We learned some investigative skills of a 6-year-old Andrew back then.
Yeah.
So, but you guys have been a part way more other stuff that Lyft has done as well, other than just Breakaway. You guys were actually instrumental in helping us start a Boost, which was, for those of you that don't know, Boost was a program that's still going on under a different name, Lyft Family Gathering, where we partner with different churches and just do an evening. It's a free night, usually has a meal, an activity, some time of worship a lot of times, and then an encouraging word for families. And but you guys helped us get to Lakeland, which is where y'all live still. And even in the rebranding of Lyft Family Gathering, you guys were a part of us helping us get there and helped us get food. I don't remember, the barbecue place that you found was so good.
Yeah.
But so how did you orchestrate that? And that went on for several years.
Yes,
there in Lakeland.
So when I learned about the first Boost programs that they were doing, they were more over in this area of the state, and it wasn't easy for us to get there on a regular basis. But we intended, I don't know, at least one that I remember. And afterwards, I remember thinking, gosh, it would just be so nice if we could do this in Lakeland. And our church has all these big facilities and there's space to do it. And so I approached the pastors about whether or not they would be interested in, in allowing that to happen on our church campus. And they agreed to that. They felt like that was a great thing to do. And so we kind of did it was, I forget exactly how long, but it was 2 or 3 years, I think. Yeah. And so it was a lot of fun. It was a different side of the Lyft ministry for us, because instead of being a family that was participating in the event, we were actually helping support other families. Right. And so that was a different, perspective. And I think really in the beginning, that was a lot more of the perspective that I felt like we had. It wasn't until probably the last 6-7 years that I felt much more support, maybe from, or even the feeling of needing more support from Lyft, as our daughter's health kind of took a major dive. That just kind of changed the dynamics a lot of our family and what we were able to do and not able to do. Prior to that, I kind of understood the life that a lot of families lived with disabilities. And even though our daughter had Down syndrome the entire time we had her, we knew ahead of time when we adopted her that she did. So it wasn't a surprise. So we weren't like thrown for the loop that most people are when they have a child with a disability, and it wasn't what they were expecting, because we knew what we were expecting. And so to us, Katie was just Katie. And so I didn't feel like I had experienced as much of the emotional side of it, as much of the isolation, as much of a lot of those things as other people do. It wasn't until she really started to have some major health issues and basically became homebound and hospital bound. And I started spending days and weeks at a time in the hospital, that I started really sensing some of those things. I started to realize, oh, I am really isolated and it is really lonely. And so it's been interesting because I feel like I've been on both sides of Lyft. So.
And you touched on a subject that we haven't talked about in any of our other videos. A big part of Lyft is programs, and where we try to create these environments for families to come together. And it's very intentional, right? Like we do silly stuff, but it's really intentional, and it's not about the stuff at all. It's really just about getting families in a room together, and we create crazy environments to make it attractive to people, but it's really just to get those families together. It's what Breakaway's about. We spend money on the stuff, but the relationships are really what matters most. But what we haven't talked about in any of our videos is the non-program side of Lift. That is, when you're in the hospital, there's no program that's going to come and, serve you in the program, but there are relationships that really matter at that point. And that's where, like, I've been impacted even as an employee and somebody that observed Lift, to see Lift, Jim and Ronnie, and then other, volunteers and staff that have really walked alongside of families during crisis, a lot of times, health crisis particularly, and really going above and beyond any program. Like, it's like, okay, Boost is over, we're checked out, but really the ministry never stops. And I think that's where those Boost events that you are really integral, both of you guys, are important, because that's where those relationships start. But then you really start to reap the benefit of those relationships when you are in isolation, and you're in this deep need for relationships. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Does that resonate with you guys at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I just want to tell you guys both, Lyft has, and I can't really explain it, but you guys were so integral for the ministry to get to Lakeland, and still to this day. And that was a long, I think maybe 2013 is what we were thinking. But there's a very strong connection that we feel to Lakeland. And when we do any event there or program, there's a big, not an outcry, I won't say that, but a lot of people want us in Lakeland, and we feel very drawn to Lakeland. And I think that birth, when Boost started at y'all's church. And so I just, from my heart, just thank you guys for opening up the door in a city that, I mean, it's only 45 minutes if there's no traffic, but when is there no traffic, right? There's always traffic in between here.
I said today it used to be an hour, now it's an hour and a half.
I know. It's not that far away, but it feels forever.
Yes.
But we feel so connected to Lakeland, and that birthed from you guys. So thank you for that, and so stay tuned. We have plans for Lakeland, more than what we're doing already. But I wanted you guys, if you could, and I gave you a little bit of a heads up, but is there a significant impact that you guys can think of? There's like, that's the moment. Like, when I think of Lyft, when I'm talking about Lyft to my friends, like, this made the biggest impact on my life, or maybe it's a memory that just really stands out above all the rest. I'd love for both of you to share, if you could, maybe your most impactful moment that happened because of the ministry of Lyft.
I remember a mom brought her son the very first year. Not our first year, but their first year. And that little boy was having a ball. Well, he got on a pontoon boat, and that skipper of the boat let him drive. And
oh my gosh.
He felt like he was on top of the world. And
wow.
That made his day. And his whole camp. He was just,
wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, to see mom, to watch her son do that.
Get to experience her son do that.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
So watching other families is a lot of fun for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're an observer, Tim. Like, I could see that being like your moment, like seeing the joy in a mom and in that son. Like, that's a really significant.
That was special.
That's awesome. What about for you, Crystal?
It's really hard for me to isolate, one thing. I think along the lines of Breakaway, I think the very first one, one of my favorite things, I was looking at pictures today, and one of my favorite things was the very beginning of the very first one, watching my daughter get this beautiful like butterfly painted on her face and looking at herself in the mirror, and how happy and excited she was. And our kids were, well, it was quite a while ago, so our kids were 10 and 6, and now they're 22 and 19. So
grown up at camp.
they have grown up over the years at camp and at Boost, and it was great to watch. Even when we did Lift, you know, you said 2013, so that was only 2 years later. So my son was 8, but he wanted to be such a helper, and he would help with setup and help move chairs and tables and all kinds of things as an 8 and a 9-year-old, you know, wanting to help. And I feel like that helped to give him, you know, more of a heart of service for things. So much so that this past year, when I actually attended Breakaway by myself, just to kind of have a little bit of respite and time away for myself. But he and Tim decided to come up for a day and volunteer. He had some time off from work, and so the two of them came up to volunteer. And I thought that was so amazing, because he actually asked me, you know, are there things I can do? Do you, you know, should I come and volunteer? And
that's awesome.
So I feel like being involved with Lyft has kind of given him some of that, you know, spirit of service and understanding what it's like to help other families. And that's been a really great thing for him.
That's great.
2020 was also, that was a crazy year for everybody.
Yeah.
And it was a crazy year, obviously, for Breakaway. And
we did a virtual camp that year.
Right.
Which we didn't even know what that was, right?
Right. You know, nobody really knew what that was going to look like. And I know in one of the previous discussions with another family, you know, you talked about that COVID wasn't a blessing, but some of the things that came out of it and the way God used that. And so there are things in my life that I've chosen to call COVID blessings.
Yeah, for sure.
And basically the access to technology and the access to things online has been a huge blessing for us in multiple ways. But one of those ways was with things like the first Breakaway. Yeah. My daughter was actually in the hospital during that time, and he was able to bring the laptop and the T-shirts and stuff to the hospital. That was, I actually sent a picture of that today to Ronnie, where she was actually sitting in her hospital bed wearing the T-shirt, and she was watching Messy Games or watching something, and she watched music therapy, and we watched the chapel services, and we were able to watch all those things, you know, from a hospital room. Who would have ever thought that I could attend Breakaway from a hospital room? Yeah. You know, but we did. And that was such a blessing to be able to participate and not feel like we were left out because we couldn't go. So
that's so cool. I have a significant memory that involves you guys and Katie particularly, and we think it was 2021. But Katie's health was pretty bad that year. She actually had to leave camp and go straight to the hospital. So she didn't get out of her room much while she was at camp. But our friends over at the Cowboy Church, Pastor Mark, heard about, I don't even know who told him about Katie. And I didn't get to experience it firsthand. I was there on the campgrounds and heard about it. But they brought the miniature horse inside the room so Katie could experience a little bit of the horses that were there. And we got awesome pictures of the horse in the hotel room.
Yep, the horse in the room next. It was literally right next to
we probably broke some code, and Lake Yale probably doesn't know about it until now that they had a horse in one of their rooms. It was a miniature horse. So.
And it wasn't for long, you know, like 5 minutes or whatever, but it was awesome.
But it matters, you know, those little things matter so much. And it mattered to Katie, you know, that she got to experience a little part of camp, even from her room that year. Right. So, man, it made an impact on my life to see. It's like, man, and Pastor Mark just comes, like, that's his role at camp. But he heard about it, and he knew that he could meet that need. And just stepped right into it. I was, man, that's one of the craziest things I've ever heard of.
Yeah, it was
the
awesome.
Horse in the room. So, well, guys, we could talk for hours, literally.
We could.
You guys have stories, but we're gonna run out of, you know, a storage room on the camera here soon. So we're gonna wrap this one up. But thank you guys so much, not just for coming and being a part of this project, but for being a part of Lyft. For us, you guys are so much more than a participant. or a camper, you guys are family to us, and I hope that you guys know that we're here for you. When you need us, we're here for you in any way that we can serve you. It goes way beyond a program. For us, we love you guys and want to be there for you, even during those hard times. So love you guys, and thank you for being a part of this video. I don't know when it's going to be out, but we'll tell you. But thank you guys. Yeah, we'll tell you. Hey, check on Facebook. So thank you guys.
You're welcome.